What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at my Game Week 2 team selection, but before I want to go through the rundown of Game Week 1 with you and talk about some of the teams and players you might want to look at targeting, as well as some of the ones you might want to avoid. This will be a weekly video, but let me know if you'd rather it was split into 2 videos. Unfortunately, this isn't my actual job, so commitments to one video are a bit easier at the moment, but I'll see what I can do. So stick around until the end of the video to see my Game Week 2 team selection, or by all means just skip ahead using the timestamps below. I will say though, you'll be missing out on some extreme FPL knowledge. Let's aim for 10 likes and please consider subscribing for more content all the way through the season. So, as you can see, we've got 59 points, which was 2 points above the average score, landing us pretty much in the middle of the pack with a rank of 3.8 million. Not great, but considering I didn't go with Salah, I'm not going to get too mad about it. There were plenty of positives in the team. Unfortunately, Henderson was probably not one of them. He got 2 points. They lost 2-1 to Brentford, and to be pretty honest, Crystal Palace's defence looked quite shaky. Not really what I expected from them. He did make 3 saves to get that extra point though. Mykolenko was another blank. He only got 1 point. And again, Everton looked really shaky, just like Crystal Palace. I thought that Everton and Crystal Palace were going to be 2 of the stronger defences, considering last season's stats, but it didn't look that way in the first game week. Brighton put 3 past them. Trent did a little better than them as expected in his fixture against Ipswich. He got 9 points. He got a clean sheet and all 3 bonus points. And he could have had an assist as well if it wasn't for Jota just off target with his header. Saliba was also there with 6, with the standard Arsenal clean sheet as expected. They looked so confident at the back again. Jota scored Liverpool's opener and got 8 points, and he could have had another, as I just said. Really positive from Jota, and I think he looks like the starting striker. He did play 78 minutes, and he didn't quite cover Salah, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse. Nkunku was my biggest worry of the game week. He was hooked after 58 minutes, so he didn't even get the second minutes point. He ended up with 1. I mean, I wasn't expecting a haul against Man City, but the minutes are really worrying. But I'll talk a little bit more about Nkunku later in the video. Eze's next, and that was probably the most frustrating of the players I had, because that could have been a 10 plus pointer on another day. He looked really dangerous, and he had a goal wrongly disallowed, a great free kick that he absolutely smashed in, and he was a toenail away from an assist as well. But yeah, just so frustrating. The ref even actually ended up admitting to his mistake. Saka was Mr. Reliable again, 12 points, goal and assist, and in hindsight should have captained him against Wolves, but you can't predict the future. Again, João Pedro blanked, he only got 2 points. But that was another frustrating one. He hit the post early on, and you're really unfortunate if your striker's not involved in any of the goals when the team scores 3. Haaland popped up with 7, inevitable goal against Chelsea, but he didn't quite match Salah, unfortunately. Not that that was 100% anyway, it was more of a hedge your bets. He was really bought for Game Week 2 though, as they're playing Ipswich. So the benefit that the Salah managers had on Game Week 1, the Haaland managers have in Game Week 2. Let's hope he hauls. Last we had Isak, and he got 10. He was my captain. He got an assist to Joelinton from a really bad mistake from the goalkeeper, but the red card really changed the game. It could have been a completely different game if Shah hadn't have been sent off. But unfortunately, that's just how fantasy goes sometimes, and I know quite a lot of people were in the same boat as me with Isak. I think the captaincy was split between Haaland, Isak and Salah quite evenly, around 20-25% each. So the Salah captain has really had the best week. On the bench I had Barco, who didn't play at all, and I'll talk about him a bit later on in the video as well. But we also had the 2 Fulham assets, Robinson and Smith Rowe, who were benched against Man United. Smith Rowe played about 60 minutes and looked quite promising, and Robinson looked really promising too. He made 6 tackles and got quite a lot of crosses into the box, and he wasn't bought for the first fixture against Man United. Their next 2, they've got Leicester and Ipswich, so that's who we're going to target. Anyway, that's enough about my team. I wanted to talk about some of the best players and teams from Game Week 1 in terms of defence and attack. Southampton were the best of the defences. They had an expected goals conceded of just 0.25. But again, that was a lot to do with Newcastle's red card pretty early on in the game. Shah got sent off for a headbutt. Whether or not it was a headbutt is up for debate. I'm on the side of the Newcastle player here. Let me know in the comments what side you're on. Arsenal were obviously one of the best defences again. They had an expected goals conceded of 0.39. And then Brighton were the third best defence with an expected goals conceded of just 0.40. Also, Everton did get a red card. Ashley Young got sent off pretty late in the game. I'm pretty sure Brighton had scored all their goals by the time he got sent off. As well as that, Man United, Brighton and Liverpool were the only three teams that conceded 0 big chances in the whole 90 minutes. Moving on to the best attacks, and Liverpool came out on top in game week 1. They had an XG of 2.69, and I'd imagine most of that came in the second half of the game watching it. I think Ipswich actually did alright in the first half. Liverpool struggled, but in the second half they just completely dominated. Man United had an XG of 2.44. Bruno had a couple of really good chances, but I think the large amount of that XG was from Garnacho's chance right at the end of the game. He missed an absolute open goal, and being a Man United fan, if that was 0-0 at that point, I think I would have put my head through my TV. West Ham had the third best XG of 2.39, but they did get a penalty. Liverpool again had the most big chances of any team in game week 1 with 6. And moving on to some of the best player data for game week 1, and Mitoma for Brighton had the highest XG of 1.12. He actually did score one of the goals. Fernandes and Souček also had an XG of over 1.0. I was quite surprised by Souček, but a couple of seasons ago he did actually play quite a forward role in the West Ham team and he got quite a few goals. I wonder if he'll be a viable option at 5 million if he carries on. Trent had the best expected assists of 1.0, and that was probably largely to do with the cross he whipped into Jota. Unfortunately, it didn't go in, but you can't win them all. I think the fact that his expected assist was so high as well is probably why he got the 3 bonus points over Salah. Maddison was pretty close to Trent with an XA of 0.98, and he looked like the most creative player in the Spurs midfield. And just to tag on the bottom, thinking about that new bonus point system, Fernandes, Salah, Eze, Saka and Mitoma all had the most shots on target with 3. As we know in FPL, to go alongside the players that do well, there are also some players that we have concerns about, and I'm going to chat about a few. I want to start off with Barco, as he's a player I have in my team. He didn't start the game against Everton, and he played 0 minutes. But it's not looking like we're going to have to worry about those minutes. Sevilla have reached a verbal agreement with Brighton to sign him on a loan deal. No buy option, so he's expected back next year, but that just turns him off as an option this year completely. The good news is that his price will lock, and he doesn't look likely to fall to 3.9 before then, so I'd just leave him on your bench for now. But he will have to come out eventually, and I think the most obvious option to go for would be Greaves. He played 90 minutes against Liverpool, and he actually looked like he could be pretty dangerous from set pieces. My personal plan is to roll the transfer into game week 2, and I would advise most people do that. 1 week of data is not enough to make an informed decision. However, there are a few players, as you can see here, that I probably would consider selling if I had them. The first one's Kwanzaa. He was subbed off at half-time of the Liverpool game, and Slot said after the game it was because he didn't win enough duels and he wasn't really involved in the game enough. Liverpool also looked much better in the second half, and it's a really easy replacement just to swap him for Robertson or Mazraoui. And the big one is Heung-min Son. Now, I don't have him, so I don't have the headache, which I'm really thankful for, but if you don't have him, definitely avoid, and I would really consider selling if I did have him. He wasn't in the game at all. He had an XG of 0.03, and as you can see by this player map that's just popped up, he spent most of his time really wide left. The fact that they were also playing one of the quote-unquote weakest teams in the league also was really worrying, and there's much better options at those premium prices. You can't have one of your premium players blanking every week. He also didn't play 90 minutes, and Postecoglou has shown in the past that he's not worried about taking some of his best attackers off and rotating them. If you've got him, I would strongly consider looking at Saka's the obvious choice, but De Bruyne or Foden, they've got Ipswich next and they could massively outscore Son. Saying that, you never know, with these expensive players, he could go out and score a hat-trick the next week. So don't shoot me if you take him out and he does haul. Now, I said I would get onto Nkunku, and I think he probably affects most managers that are probably listening to this. He's probably the highest owned out of all these players on the screen. And I wouldn't rush into any rash decisions here. He was subbed off after 58 minutes, so only got 1 point. And Chelsea didn't really look like they created many attacking opportunities, but they were playing Man City. And if you were hoping for a haul against Man City, you're probably living in a dream world. Again, I wouldn't rush into transferring him out. I'd monitor him for the next few games. They've got some easier fixtures, and those are the fixtures that we selected Nkunku for. We didn't pick him for game week 1. We picked him for the fixtures after. Now, over the next few games, if he blanks and gets taken off early, then I would strongly consider, in fact, I wouldn't strongly consider, I'd make it a priority to take him out. Give him 2-3 more game weeks at max to show what he can do, and if he gets his minutes up and he starts returning, then it's golden. But if he doesn't, there's plenty more options at 6.5 or around that cost that are really good options. Speaking of options, and here are some of the ones to watch I think you should be putting on your watch list. In terms of defenders, I'd keep an eye on Guardiola if you don't already have him. When Walker comes back in the team, we can see if he plays more advanced like he did at the end of last season. Munoz looked pretty attacking in the Crystal Palace game despite them losing. And in hindsight again, it would probably have been a smarter move to go with Raya and Munoz over Henderson and Saliba. Munoz did actually end up getting the assist, although it was an own goal. Pedro Porro made it onto the list last night after he scored a wonderful header. He did take a little knock at the end of the game, but I think he was making a meal out of it. I don't think there'll actually be anything wrong with him. One to strongly consider and look at Spurs fixtures. Another one to keep an eye on is Man United's new boy, Mazraoui. If they keep keeping clean sheets, then at 4.5, he's a great way in. Now, he didn't look too attacking, to be honest, but the defensive work he did will really add up on those bonus points. He won quite a lot of free kicks. He made loads of tackles. He looked pretty solid. Moving on to the midfielders, and if you don't already have him, Fernandes looked like a great option. Another week he could have hauled. He did have 2 one-on-ones that unfortunately he couldn't put away, and he started in a false 9 position. He did move further back when he brought Xerxes on, but Fernandes is one to watch. Another one that's made my shortlist is Mbeumo. I'm slightly annoyed at myself because I usually start with Mbeumo, but I just didn't like the fixtures. I've looked at the fixtures again, and I'd consider putting him in at game week 6. I'll pop the fixtures up now so you can see. But from game week 6 to game week 13, they've got a really good run. He'd be a very viable option if you're going for an early wild card as well. And if Tony ends up leaving, then he's the main man, and he's probably going to be on penalties. We spoke about Matoma earlier. Like I said, he had the best XG of all players in the league with 1.12. And if Brighton keep banging in the goals, then he's a serious contender for somebody that's coming in my team. Possible option for an Nkunku replacement if Nkunku just can't get the minutes. The last midfielder I've got down is Rodgers. Now, I know there was a lot of hype about him at the start of the season, but it kind of tailed off towards game week 1. After watching the first game, although he didn't get any returns, he played the full 90 minutes, and at 5 million and a rotation player, that's pretty good. I would keep an eye and see if he starts firing. Havertz is a player stupidly that I didn't even consider at the start of this season, despite the fact that I actually had him at the end of last season when he was performing really well. He got the same as Saka, he got a goal and an assist. And if he can carry on scoring goals, even with Arsenal's fixtures, then he might even be more important than Isaac. Solanke's another one I put on the list, and it's not because he set the world alight against Leicester, but I think he will get goals. He got a few chances, and a 7.5 million starting striker for one of the top teams you can't ignore. Last I put Armstrong, and this mainly is a comparison to João Pedro, as they both cost 5.5. And Armstrong did have a lot of shots against Newcastle, Now that might be something to do with the fact that they were playing 10 men for most of the game, but he's another player that I would keep an eye on. Alright, so let's move on to my Game Week 2 team selection. And if you're still with me, leave a comment down below to let me know. I've gone with a 3-5-2 this week, and I'm hoping to roll the transfer. At the moment, there's no worries of injuries or bans, so I'm pretty sure I'll be rolling. We've got Henderson in goal against West Ham at home, hoping for Crystal Palace to look a little bit more sturdy in their defence. Followed by Robertson against Leicester. He's come in for Mikalenko, and it should be an easier game than Man United. We stuck with Trent and Saliba. Trent's playing Brentford at home and Saliba's playing Aston Villa. Villa's not the easiest fixture away, but he's a premium defender, so I'm probably not going to bench him. Barco's the defender on the bench with Mikalenko, as they've got some tough fixtures this week, but we'll just monitor them to see how they get on. Moving on to the midfield, and we've gone Jota. They're playing Brentford at home, like I said, and hopefully we see another return from him. And we're stuck with Nkunku as well, as they're playing Wolves away. A much better fixture than the one against Man City, and hopefully we can actually see what Nkunku's made of. Smith Rowe's come in for João Pedro, so playing 5 in midfield. They're playing Leicester at home. Again, he looked really promising against Man United in the hour he got. Picked up the ball in some really good areas, so I'm hoping against a weaker team he might get forward and push on. Fourth midfielder is Eze, playing West Ham, and hopefully he can just make up for his bad luck in the first game. And finally, we've gone with Saka, away at Aston Villa. Just 2 up front this week. We've got Isak against Bournemouth away, which is another great fixture, and hopefully with an 11-man team, Isak can get forward and get some goals. And last but not least, we've got Haaland. He's probably got the best fixture of the week with Ipswich at home. I'll be giving him the captain's armband, and I suggest if you have him, you do the same. Let's just hope he can outdo what Salah did last week and outdo what Salah does this week, so us Haaland managers can relax a little bit. As I said, João Pedro makes way for Smith Rowe. I'd imagine João Pedro will be first on my bench. I usually go with the striker first on the bench. He's got a tough game against Man United, but he's more likely to score than Barco or Mikalenko. So that's it. Game week 1, fully done and dusted. Moving on into game week 2. Let me know what you think of the team down below, and if you go with anything different. I'm crossing my fingers and toes for a green arrow, and hope you guys get one too. If you like the content, check out some of my other videos and follow me on my socials. It would mean a lot if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. There'll be plenty more content like this coming throughout the season. So I'll see you in the next one.